Testing out some new music today. Sounds like, get this one, Buffalo Springfield. No, I know you never heard of them. Now, it's a long time ago, but that was Joel Chernoff in one of his albums, I think Lamb 2, and I hadn't heard that before, so I really liked it. It took me back to the Buffalo Springfield days of the end of the sixth decade in the 20th century. Yes, that's when it was. That's when it was. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to New Earth Restoration online Shabbat service for July 19th. July 19th, 2025. And yes, we're glad to be alive. So I want to start out by mentioning that this week I was sick, a few days, but I got better right after that last Shabbat, right after we got going in that meeting last week, just loosened up. And so I took some time and did some translating. I've been on the subject of death, resurrection, and especially justification, which leads to salvation and stops off at sanctification before you get there. And I've learned a lot. I've been going through all Yeshua's words in the Gospel of John, retranslating them, trying to do it rightly, trying to do it as perfectly as possible, because I have noticed that in many places in the New Testament, our standard English translations of the text of Yeshua's words seem to be fudged along the way, and especially towards doctrinal issues that we really need to get back to. And so I got to Genesis 1 and 2 this week, and also I got John chapter 11. Can anybody remember what is in chapter 11? Well, that is the story of the death of Lazarus, or Lazar, actually, and how he was raised from the dead. And there are some rather surprising things in there, including a couple of what I consider to be mistranslations. And I'm going to start out with that as just something to think about through the rest of the service. And I'm going to do that by going over here to the actual translation, if I still have it up here. It should say at the top of the screen, John 11, smooth reading. A smooth reading is once I go through the background language and get kind of a choppy reading of what that's going to say. Then I go through it a second and often third and fourth time to make the reading not only to be as literal as possible, but also to make the most sense. And sometimes that's kind of a difficult little subject in this language because though it looks very English-like, the words in the sentences are not in the same order as English, so they usually have to be put in an order that we can understand. And you see my cursor right now? That means, oh, it just went away. It means that my screen was locked up. So, Father, we pray that you might add your blessing to these words, some of the most important words, the really crossing place in the entire Gospel of John, right in the very middle. And we know you have something to say to us today, right here. And we thank you for it. John 11:1. But there was a certain ailing man, Lazar of Bethany, from the village of Maria and Marta, her sister. And Maria was the one who had anointed the master with the ointment and had wiped his feet with her hairs, plural, whose brother LAZAR was ailing. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Master, come see the one you like. He's ailing. So I was sure surprised to see this word like in here. I'd always read it, the one you love, and thinking, well, this must be the beloved disciple. But actually, it doesn't keep with the rest of the book and a beloved disciple. This is somebody who he liked. And we'll see a contrast there with love in a minute. Come see the one you like. He's ailing. So having heard, Yahshua said, this ailment isn't fatal, but for the esteem of the Elohim, so that the Son of the Elohim might be honored through it. And here we have Yahshua loved Marta and her sister and LAZAR. So we get a little contrast right there. They're two very different words. This is a phileo, and this one here is agapeo, and they're completely different. And you already know what they mean. So when he heard that LAZAR was ailing, still he remained where he was for 2 more days. Then after this, he says to the Talmudim, we should go into Judea again. The Talmudim say to him, Rabbi, now the Jews are seeking to stone you, and you'd go there again? Yahshua answered, aren't there 12 hours in the day? This has become a famous passage in the last decade, a famous passage. How many hours are in the day? Well, if he doesn't know, who does? And we've learned since then that those hours in the day are about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that was among the Zadokites considered to be a day. If anyone should walk in the day, he doesn't stumble because he sees by the light of this world. But if anyone should walk in the night, he stumbles because the light isn't in him. He's talking about kind of a different light and day than we would normally think of, the light of this world. But then we stumble at night because the light isn't in him. And the narrator tells us in verse 11, he did say these things. And after this, he says to them, LAZAR, our friend, has fallen asleep. But I go so I might waken him up. So the Talmudim said of him, Master, if he's fallen asleep, he'll be saved. And that's just what it says there. Though Yahshua had spoken about his death, they thought he'd spoken of sleep. Of course, and people still think that. People still thinking about soul sleep. But this was an idiom used at that time for death to smooth down the word death. So he's got to play it straight here with them because they just can't get it. LAZAR has died. And I'm glad for you that I wasn't there, so we could go to him that you may believe. Then said Thomas, the one who was called Didymus, among his fellow Talmudim. Didymus is the second of twins. That is Greek. You can see the die in there, meaning two. Toma is a Hebrew word, and that word means twin, usually the first of twins. A lot can be said about this, but I don't have time right now. Who is called Didymus among his fellow Talmudim, we should go too, so that we may die with him. He's not so doubting. He's just looking for what's right. He has a great future ahead of him. Verse 17, having arrived, Joshua found LAZAR, having been in the tomb 4 days already. Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 15 stadia. I should have put that down here. 2 miles, not far at all. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Maria so that they might console them about the brother. We learned a word a couple weeks ago. This consolation or comfort is menachem in Hebrew, but here we got a new word, and it's not even paraclete. It's para muthe son tai. Para muthe son tai. Para muthe son tai. Para, we learn, means alongside. My or me, with my, soothing speaking. Of course, I'm lost. Oh, yeah. So they might console them about the brother. So when Martha heard Yeshua was coming, she went out and met him. But Maria remained seated in the house. Kind of sounds like sisters. I mean, twin sisters, too. So Martha said to Yeshua, Master, my brother wouldn't have died if you were here. Now I've known this much, that whatever you ask the Elohim will give you. Yeshua says to her, your brother will rise again. But Martha breaks in. I've known that he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day, at the judgment. Yeshua said to her, I am the rising up and the life, or the living. The one believing me, even if he should die, will live. And here is what Yeshua says over and over in this gospel, that those who should die, that abide in him, will live. They don't come into death as a normal human would come into death. Something else happened. And when we followed the saints through Revelation, we found what else happened. And that was when the saint passed over, the body just fell off because they had within them that born spirit, born from above, that had been growing within them all that time. And the skin, the flesh just fell off. They were gathered in by certain ones who are designated for that responsibility. And then they go for a little meeting with Yeshua. That's all for right now. There's more. There's more. You've just got to find it. So I'm glad that I can say that I'm justified. Or some of us would say, I'm saved, that we're never saved until the end comes and we miss out on the great wrath of Elohim. She says to him, yes, Master, I have confidence that you're the Messiah, the Son of Elohim, the one who was to come into the world. Having said this, she went away and called Maria, her sister, privately, having said, the teacher has come and he calls for you. And when she heard, she quickly rose up and came to him. But Yeshua hadn't come into the village yet, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. So while the Jews were with her in the house and comforting her, that is Maria, having noticed it, Maria suddenly arose and she left. They followed her, thinking that she had withdrawn to the tomb to mourn there. But when Maria came to where Yeshua was, upon seeing him, she fell near his feet, saying to him, Master, if you were here, my brother would not have died. I think both the sisters are kind of mad at him. They're mad at him because he knew about this somehow, and he just hung on where he was for a while longer. His mission hadn't been finished there yet. So in 33, when Yeshua saw her mourning along with the group of Jews accompanying her, he snorted with anguish. Yeah, he snorted. It's like the snort of a beast or snort of a bull, this word. Snorted with anguish in spirit and agitation in body. How can you not be agitated in the body if your spirit is disturbed? I imagine he was thinking at the time, is it too late? Is the Father still going to honor his word to me? Or am I going to be a failure here in front of these people whom I love and who love me? So he just said, where have you laid him? They replied to him, Master, come and see. And then we have the shortest verse in the New Testament. Yeshua wept. So the Jews said, see how much he liked him. But a certain one of them said, couldn't the one who opened the eyes of the blind make it so that this one might not have died? I'm thinking we'll just leave the rest for a little while later, leave it at a point here of tension. And once again, I find that starting from the beginning with these passages brings so much light. And why? Why would the redactor, why would the translator, or why would John, the ones that are bringing John to us through our language, when it says that they liked each other like they were friends, why did they put in the word love? That doesn't make sense to me. And it really is fake because those two words, agape and phileo, are two quite different words. They mean different things. One is a friend, one is a lover, or one that's loved in the same measure that one might love Elohim. All right, so we'll probably come back to this if our speaker doesn't show up this time. Going to stop the sharing again, welcome you in.
Goodbye, shalom, everybody. Grateful to be here today. It's always good. Kind of reminds me it's not all about me, it's about him. So I'm just grateful for this Yahad. I just wanted to share a really quick story. I have a friend of mine that we read a lot. I read a lot of books. He reads a lot of books, and we talk about them. I read all kinds of books, business books, economic books, books based on the Bible, whatever I can get my hands on, I read because I believe truth shows up in places that we never would thought would show up. So we're talking about a book. He's telling me about it. I've never read the book yet, but he's talking about a book called Fear is Not an Option. And it's by this Jewish lady. I don't forget her name. And he's talking to me about it. He's telling me, she says, whenever you're feeling fear, focus on these Hebrew letters. This cracks me up, man, how Yah works. These in this book, this worldly book, she says, focus on these Hebrew letters. And don't you know those Hebrew letters spelled out Yahushua? And he says to me, I'm Jewish, and I saw that. And I was like, wow, how about that? So what that did, it led to me having a whole conversation about Yahushua and what he's done in my life and what it means and how I say I don't use the name Jesus anymore. You know, if you want to go for it, but I'm not. And how that's who I pray to now, and I talk about how and he's Jewish himself, and I said, you know something, I'm more Jewish than you probably are, sister, because I celebrate the Sabbath. So it just led into and it was like his eyes were opened, and he kind of was like kind of blown away. But then we just moved on and talked about another subject, and I just left it at that. So it just amazes me how things show up. I truly believe with all if you don't watch the news, that's great, and I don't either. But if you have a steady diet of YouTube, you will find that there is such fear mongering, even on people who are well meaning. There's fear mongering, and our brains are conditioned to think everything is that Yah's not around, that everything's falling apart. But I believe in my own little life here, I see constantly that his kingdom is spreading, his love is spreading, his peace is spreading all over the place, whether we see it or not. And I mean, I even had a friend of mine I know since I was 13 years old, very long time. And we stayed in touch. And he texted me the other day, sent me a link on some song that we used to listen to when we were kids. And we just started conversating on things going on in the world. That he's lost a lot of people in his life. And he tells me, and these are tough guys from Queens. And he tells me, I never thought he would ever say anything like this. He goes, Paul, it's all about love. It's all about love and your relationship with the he said God, and I'm like, what's going on here, man? So to me, his peace and love is spreading, whether YouTube says something else or whether the news says something else. So that's the kind of stuff that's been showing up in my life. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, and thanks.
Amen. You're so blessed. How come you get to do this every week?
Because I've met probably over 100 people in the last 2 weeks, going out to the business and networks and events, and even to know I could go on and on about all the spiritual conversations I've had. Not really deep, but just enough to wet the whistle, kind of thing. So because I'm out there.
That is quite amazing. Good for you. Good job again. Well, you're giving us some of ways of doing this. And it seems to me like you don't even have to open up. The other person always opens up for you, and you get to give the punchline. Moses with horns. Perhaps you read the chat concerning Moses with horns and Michelangelo um, painting and sculpting Moses with horns. And that word should mean rays, Rays. But at the time, I think that Michelangelo used Jerome's Vulgate to read into that, and they didn't know what that word meant at the time. So, yeah, and a lot of those traditional words just keep going on, though I don't know if you'll find horns anymore in your Bible version, maybe an older one. But look at that. Moses with horns, and not just here in the sculptor, but it's passed on. Look at these. These are more like rays, rays coming out of his head. These are really big ones. So, what would you think if you saw somebody coming up to you with rays going out of their head like that? There's a good one. I don't think that I saw Charlton Heston here. But oh, there's a good one. Let's take a look at it. That's more like rays. That's more like horns. All right. Well, now I hope that your curiosity was quenched with that. Because I think we've got somebody wanting to speak here. Yeah, David and Lauren. Please, please do.
Good morning, everybody. I had a kind of a disappointing thing to share. I had a friend that went down to I think it's called Hebrew Fest down in southern Missouri with Adam from Parable of the Vineyard,
Yeah.
and sorely disappointed with what he saw. It was just a lot of supposed Christian rap music, but he just said there was a lot of anger, and they actually promoted polygamy and that kind of thing. So we we had thought about going down there because they've been doing it for several years, and we liked one of the husband and wife team that play music, and they are really good. They pull it straight out of the Bible and do verses, but everything else.
What group was this again?
I think it's Adam from Parable of Vineyard. They're in southern Missouri. Hebrew Fest, I believe, is what they call it. But yeah, he was appalled.
I never, Adam was involved in polygamy.
Now, apparently, yeah, because they basically segregated the guys and the girls in two different groups. And my friend had gone around trying to make conversation. He said they really weren't friendly and didn't open up anybody, which is really odd. But the guys that he did talk to said they were actually promoting that. Yeah. So
Well, in the Essenes regarding polygamy, I had, now this was years ago, but I was with Moshe Konachowski's group, B'nai, B'nai Yeshua, B'nai, something like that. I can't remember right now, but it was a long time ago. But he asked me to find reasons in the Dead Sea Scrolls for polygamy and do a message here at our Sukkot. It was 2013, 2011, 2011. Do a message, if you would, on behalf of polygamy. Well, the only thing I could find is strong, strong prohibitions against it. But I could say that if there were prohibitions against it and it was this strongly prohibited by the Essenes, then somebody must have been doing it somewhere. There'd been no need to write about it here in these holy books. Um, but if you try to take somebody down about polygamy in the Old Testament, you won't get very far because they'll beat you. It's just what is permitted in the Torah is different in the earlier temple scroll, which is the true Deuteronomy. It's the temple scroll where it's not permitted, and I believe it shouldn't be permitted. I've known some people that could live like that, but certainly it seems to be adultery to me. How about you, Marcelle? You believe in that?
It's
I,
adultery.
it's adultery. Yeah, definitely. Sorry. Sorry you got into that, but I'm glad it wasn't when I was on here. Sorry. Anybody else? Well, that is a sad thing. I say if you want to do polygamy, you can do it. There's nothing against it really, except you really need to go out. If you're doing this for a good reason, you need to go and marry some of these poor old ladies in the nursing home. Take them home with you, give them some companionship, feed them, take care of them, and bring them back to life. And then you could probably have as many of those wives as you wanted. Why is it you just go after, you Mormons, go after young ones, 12 and 13 years old, 9 years old? Yes, I just read a book, Mormons. It's a story. I mentioned it to you before. I can't remember what it is now. Just about 3 months ago, I finished it. It was following a Mormon polygamist cult and they began their search for wives at age 9. What is that? That's sexual harassment. That's all it could possibly be. Unless I'm missing out here. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a little one. So it happens a lot, but when I try to buy things from people on like Facebook and stuff like that, a lot of times they want to do it on the Sabbath. And I'll be like, well, I don't buy and sell on the Sabbath. And it happened again just yesterday. I was trying to get a AC because our AC's like on his last leg, about to go out. And uh, I basically told him I don't buy and sell on the Sabbath, and he goes, "What's the Sabbath?" So I got to explain it to him. I sent him Exodus 20, and he was like, "Oh, that's Sunday. That's the seventh day." So I sent him the definition from the dictionary of the word Saturday and the word Sunday, and I'm like, actually, according to the English language, Saturday is the seventh day and Sunday is the first. So, like, once again, when I'm buying something, and normally it happens a lot when I'm buying stuff where people want to do business on the Sabbath and get a little chance to, talk about the Sabbath a little bit with them. And we had another good thing that happened. It wasn't a big deal, but to us, it was a huge deal that we've been taking showers in our shower for the last few years and barely getting any water out of it. And I changed shower heads multiple times. And I was just so annoyed that, couldn't get clean because barely had any water. I mean, it was like trickling out. And it was so hot because our AC wasn't working that I just wanted to take a shower and cool down. So out of the blue, I just thought to look online how to fix this. And apparently they put these water restrictors inside a shower head. So I ripped it out of the inside of the shower head. And now we can actually get clean and actually cool
Oh,
down when we need to. It was a blessing from the Lord. And you have no idea how happy we are now that we actually have water in this shower. I know it's stupid and it seems little, but to us, it was a game changer.
really? Really? I mean, it was in the shower head, a restrictor?
Yeah, they put in these like EP or not EPA, but like climate things trying to save water. So almost every shower head you buy at the store is going to have a rubber O-ring and a plastic restrictor inside of it. But you can just take a pair of needle nose pliers and just rip it out, and all of a sudden it's like you have full-on water pressure again. And I had no idea that that's what was stopping our thing. I thought we had clogged pipes and we just couldn't get water. Apparently, no, it's all the shower heads have this little thing that's stopping the water from coming out, and you could just rip it out.
Well, Joshua says that they've been installing those for years. Trump is trying to have them removed. Well, maybe so. If you're hot, you got to get that air conditioning fixed if you can, whether it's a Shabbat or not, because that's especially you're getting up in age. So they put out warnings here down here the last couple of weeks. Uh, People older than a certain age, senior citizens, not supposed to go outside of their houses because of the heat level was so high. And in my car, went out, it was 110 one day, and that's too much, even for you, brother. We'd hate to have to visit you in a tomb, really. How about you, Craig? You coming out of a tomb?
Oh, not out of a tomb, but no, just praise the Most High. We actually had 53 degrees here last night, so we didn't need our AC running at all. It was kind of chilly. I got up this morning to shut my alarm off, and I was pretty cold actually. So we're not in the same environment up here for sure. And then this week we were also went to the hospital, I guess on a good note, although the hospital's not the best place to do this, but we had an ultrasound and baby number 8 is a little boy. So we know that he's a little boy, he's healthy, everything's looking good from what the doctors can see. Mary feels good, so it'll be uh we'll have 4 daughters and 4 sons. This will be the fourth son. So
You got to be kidding.
no, we're expected to be December 1st.
What a blessing.
But yeah, so we're looking forward to that, and everybody's growing and healthy. And my wife and I this year in August, you know, my wife and I were coming up on our 24th wedding anniversary. So um, we got married when I was 20 years old and she was 19. So that was a long time ago, and just the changes that we've been through, and just the Most High's hand in our marriage to keep us together and so close, as we've changed so drastically in our lives from what we were till now. Both of us have, and changed for the good, and just can't praise him enough. Um, yeah, we're just always grateful, and thank you for the service, Jackson.
Well, sir, you just remember that when things get down. You just remember that how you are blessed, and you're blessed more abundantly than anybody I know. You need help, give me a call. Anybody else? Well, I don't know if we have any prayer requests in this bunch except for Mary and Lee.
I got a quick prayer. I didn't get a chance to say a prayer. I got a quick
Well,
prayer request to
you can pray then. Pray for the.
okay.
Another thing that I am so upset about is that I've heard it a million times. The way of salvation is so improperly spoken by common believers today. And the hope that they have, I think that it's by and large misplaced hope. Why? Well, it's because, I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Yeshua says one thing, and Paul says another thing. Now, I know there's a lot of feedback against that. I get it every time I even mention it. But if you get in there and look, you can see is it is made, it's so much different with Paul's conception of it than with Yeshua's. And again, the best word you can get on Yeshua's perspective is to go through his words, especially what I'm getting now and been putting down because I am interpreting the whole book. And sometimes we only know what Paul can't be saying. Well, I think that there is some truth to the fact that they are parsing Paul out, trying to make sense of what he did say and what he didn't say, because it's obvious that there are some big contradictions in there just between Paul and Paul. And the scholars have said for years, these scholars, you can't just throw them out. They have given their life for this study. They have given their life to understand this properly. And several of the books that they say that Paul wrote, Ephesians, um, Colossians, and pieces of other ones. Yeah, a Roman Herodian agent. Well, I like someone to get down to that because there's somebody in Josephus that his name is Saul and the dates are right, and he's proclaimed in Jewish war and antiquities as an agent of King Herod Agrippa II. And why wouldn't Paul be? He's first cousin with him, first cousin, and even Acts. Well, in Acts, we see a scene with Paul and King Agrippa II together, along with Agrippa, the rest of his family, his two daughters. I think that's in Acts 24, maybe. And the Tertullus, the governor, is there, who's married to one of those sisters. and they're all there, and the speech is so conversational, so conversational. Well, I don't want to go into that now because, well, I've been through it with somebody this week, and it's kind of messes you up because who wants to be who wants to be a herald of what could be bad news? Joshua insists on a certain discipline. That discipline is to love him and love the Father. But you can't be loving him or the Father unless you're doing what they say. It's conditional love, no doubt about it. He comes right out and says it. There's a condition for our love, the love of my Father and I, and that is that you keep the commandments. Then the other guy says to, well, in the letter to the Galatians, we know that that is authentic, and we also know that uh, um, it is either a response or a response to James chapter 2 and 3, because uh, the subjects there are exactly the same, and even the wording is the same, and that Paul doesn't like those hyper apostles, he calls them. He doesn't like them. He calls them false. He calls their gospel false. I mean, they had a little, well, they always say, well, Paul had a talk with them there in Acts chapter 15, and everything was just wonderful. Maybe for a while. But does Paul go too far when in Galatians, he talks about nullifying circumcision? That was the hailing part of the Jews. And second of all, what was the other one? Foods um, sacrificed to idols. We hear Peter talking a lot about that in the Nazarene Acts and how that act will kill you. But to go into Europe, for Paul to go into Europe, there's a couple of laws that he has to be rid of. One of those is circumcision. He's not allowed to circumcise anybody in Europe. Well, he's not, but the Jews are. They don't consider him a Jew anymore. So if he goes up there, he's going to get corporeal punishment for circumcising or even going for that. It's against the law, strictly against the law, and you can be executed for that. The other one is food and idols. Of course, the Romans were known to eat all kinds of anything from bugs to peacock tongues and everything else you can think of, to offal, that is manure and the offal of whatever would happen to pass by. Paul asked to be done with that too, because all the meat in Europe, practically all of it, is sacrificed to idols. That's the reason they sacrificed meat in the temple in Jerusalem. So people could eat some protein, eat some meat in their diet that hadn't been killed in sacrifices to pagan deities. Paul's not considered a Jew anymore in Europe, and he can't be teaching that. So you find him not teaching that anymore. Those are the two things in Galatians I can think of right off the hand, besides calling Jerusalem the Sodom in Egypt, and again, insulting the other apostles. Well, that's all further I can go on that because I'm not doing that right now, but we'll go back here to a very important passage. Finish up this John chapter 11. I wasn't expecting to be talking today, but this, I've always got something ready in case. All right, where do we leave off? I think 38, maybe on a little more. So Yahshua comes into the tomb again, and again he's snorting like an animal, like a beast, in anguish within himself. I guess I don't need two agains in there. And it was a cave with a stone lying on it. Yes, I remember this now. Yahshua says, remove the stone. Martha, the sister of the one having died, says to him, Master, already he stinks, for it's the fourth. Yahshua says to her, did I not say to you that if you would believe, you'd see the Shekinah of the Elohim? It's about time he started getting mad. Look here, snorting in anguish. He's yelling at Martha. It's surprising he just to say, you dumb cow, don't you get it yet? So they removed the stone, and Yahshua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you've heard me, and I'd known that you hear me always, but because of the crowd standing around, I said it, that these people might believe that you sent me. It seems like that he had an awful lot of respect among those who were there. If he can command a stone to come off a tomb, somebody inside that's supposedly been dead for 4 days, and they go right to it. And having spoken these things, he said with a loud cry, LAZAR, here, outside. That's exactly what he said. Having been dead, one more time. Having been dead. What happens when you die? Nothing. If you're not born of the Spirit from above and you die, nothing happens to you. You're dead. That's why you've got a resurrection of the dead and you've got a second death. It's that simple. And see, we've overlooked this. Our whole lives, we've overlooked it. Firstborn, spiritual birth, physical death, physical life in resurrection of the human body from the dead. Yes, that can be done. It's already being done. And then a second death, except for those who were born from above, that person gets their human spirit back into that socket where it should have been in the first place because Adam and his kin lost it. But you have made a decision to follow Yahshua, not necessarily Paul, or following Athanasius of Alexandria. Do what he says. You do what Yahshua says if you want to be abiding in him. That's who you do. He's the boss. Yahshua says to them, loose him and let him go. I can see Yahshua at about the nastiest point in time, except there's one other place in the Gospel of Mark where it says that he got plumb mad. And many of the Jews who come to see Maria saw what Yahshua did and trusted him. They trusted him before something happened, the manifestation. His hands and his feet had been bound with linen bands and with a sudarion wrapped around his face. Sudarion is a face cloth, but that word sudarion has some importance in Christian tradition because of the face cloth of Yeshua that supposedly held his image. And that face cloth was given to Veronica in Christian tradition. Veronica, the woman with the issue of blood. Veronica is her name. Her name means true image. Vero, true. Icon, image. So Veronica, the woman, has the true image of Yahshua, who takes it to King Abgarus in Adiabene, a little country to the east of there, along with an evangelist named LAZAR. You hearing me? LAZAR, Veronica, the Sudarian, which they call it the Mandylion, Mandylion, the face of Yahshua, which has some blood on it, and is still in extant today. There are two things that claim the blood of Yahshua: the Mandylion, or the true icon, and the Shroud of Turin. Interesting to note that both of those have the same blood on them. They've been tested. And that blood is in part Druze blood. Druze are a sect of Israel's religion that come from Egypt. Out of Egypt I've called my son. Nazareth today is full of Druze. It's a Druze city. And when this blood was tabulated, the ones that were promoting this whole project went to Nazareth to learn, to find out that everybody there were Druze people. Understand that doesn't mean that in Yeshua's day he wasn't a Jew, but he was of Druze background, which was Egyptian. And so they go back to Nazareth and they go to a family that's close by where Mary's house was supposed to be. And they drag these people out and take blood tests on them. And the blood test from these Nazarenes and the blood tests from Yahshua on the Mandylion and on the shroud are the same. Hey, I didn't do that. You can see the whole thing's done on YouTube, and I probably have the video here. It all started because a Protestant Baptist minister, I know you want to see my face, a Protestant Baptist minister wanted to prove that Jesus was a Jew and not a Gentile. Yes, of course you remember it. We've talked about it before, Joshua. Of course you remember it. Now, I can't tell you the name of it here, but go find it, or I'll find it. It's on my computer here someplace. What a revelation that is. Of course, unless it's all lies. But the poor old young Baptist preacher, when he found out, he was absolutely smothered. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he came to tears very quickly. He was crestfallen. He didn't even know what a Druze was. I guess he probably does now. Druize. Druze. Druize. You can trace them back to the same place where Yahshua and his family came from in Egypt. Druze, there it is. Sorry, I got that wrong, didn't I? I was rhyming it with bruise. That's why. But everything turns bad. Though all these people that were hanging around Maria trusted him, the rest of them didn't. 46. But others of them went away to the Pharisees and related what Yahshua did. So the chief priests and the Pharisees, Sanhedrin, I think that's like the Beit Din, they gathered together and said, "What do we do? For this one man does so many signs. If we leave him alone, all will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take us away, as well as the place and the culture. What then to do with this Jesus of Nazareth? Miracle wonder man, leader of fools." Remember the song? Yes, of course you do. Now, even the reason why it profits us that one man should die in place of the people. Did I miss something? Yeah. But a certain one of them, Caiaphas, friend of Paul's. One of the traditions we have is that Paul was down in Jerusalem from Tarsus in order to marry Caiaphas' daughter or granddaughter, Mary, Marya. Maria. Caiaphas, being the year's chief priest, said to them, "You've known nothing at all, not even the reason why it profits us that one man should die in place of the people and that the whole culture should be destroyed." This always amazed me to read this next one. This he said not from himself, but as chief priest that year. And I don't think Caiaphas was even priestly blood. He was married to the daughter of the high priest Annas. So he was a son-in-law of priestly blood. But you see, he married the daughter of Annas, the priest, and he became a high priest. And so maybe, according to this tradition, Paul was going down there to Jerusalem to marry Caiaphas's daughter, or maybe granddaughter, in order to be the high priest after Caiaphas. But as chief priest, whether he deserved it, was in the right family or not, and he was not a Zadokite, of course he wasn't. He prophesied that Yahshua was about to die instead of the culture. Yet not only that, but that the dispersed children of Elohim he might also gather into one. Now, how could he do both of those things? He was going to die, but at the same time, he was going to call the dispersed together. And this is exactly what he told his disciples to do. Just the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And the rest of that is added on. I'm sorry to tell you. That part, go out and make disciples of all nations, or going, make disciples of all nations. That's an interpolation. It was put in there later. Make disciples or teach all nations in Mark, I think. Those endings in Mark and in Matthew are additions. Somebody's torn the ending off of them in ancient times and put something else on. In fact, in Mark, there are 4 different endings. If you had a good study Bible, you've got all 4 of them at the end of Mark. So from that day on, they resolved together that they would kill him. Just like the Senate, the Republicans are going to kill Caesar. Julius Caesar, and did kill him on the Senate floor. Thereafter, Yahshua walked no longer among the Jews openly, but went away into a desert or deserted area to a city called Ephraim, and there he remained with the Talmudim. Now, Ephraim, I wouldn't call it a city. No, I wouldn't. I know I have a map here. It's so simple to find. It's straight north of Bethany, if I remember right. That's not it. It's straight north, and it's right off the Jordan River, and there's nothing there at all except caves and Essenes. Thereafter, Yahshua walked no longer among the Jews. He didn't go out among them anymore. He went to some dinky little place with the Bedouin, and there he remained with the Talmudim. 55, and we're done. The Jews' Passover was soon, and many ascended into Jerusalem from the outer region prior to the Passover. Is he going to go down there? Is that what he was talking about at the beginning of this section? Oh, you're not going there, are you? They tried to kill you. So they were ascending, the Jews. Why would they be going up to Jerusalem? Well, you know, Jerusalem was on Mount Zion, on a high place, so they had to ascend. They had to go up some 40 feet to get up there to solid ground again. From the outer region that's on the ground prior to the Passover, they have to climb up all the way up there to the temple, to the court of nations or court of Israelites. There are pools to clean yourself up. Now, if you have some money, you can go to the Sadducees pool, and you get a nice towel there. And there are benches there. And that's probably about $125, same as the Jews charge you to go into Passover today. $175 or maybe $200. Come on up, use our pool. It's cleaner than the rest. You can sit down on a bench and get a towel. There was the Pharisaic pool. They were known and famous because they were able to make dirty water clean. Because they had at one end of their pool clean water dribbling into their noxious, filthy pool. where every child in Jerusalem had peed in it. But the dribbling of the water through their Pharisaical magic supposedly cleansed all of it. Or you could go to an Essene bath. You just got rainwater there, or water from what do they call those things they hang up in the house on the roof and gain water? Cistern water. But one thing you had to have was a bath. So up you went, catching a bath. Some of you are particularly holy. You want to make sure everybody saw you at each one of those pools. No, I'm not kidding about this. No, they had to pay. Just like they had to pay if they wanted to sacrifice an animal, they couldn't bring their own animal anymore. They had to go down and buy one with red paint on it. Thus, they were seeking Yahshua, and while standing in the temple, they spoke with each other. What do you think? What do you think? Look, he'll certainly not come to the feast. But just in case, the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders. Should anyone know his location, he should report it so that they could arrest him. In fact, it wasn't the Pharisees, but the Sadducees were giving out money, Caiaphas money. I was talking to a government agent this week, and somehow my payment for Medicaid, not Medicaid, Medicare Part D, prescription medicine, it was gone, solid gone. And I called them up. I was talking to a little lady there. And she said, well, you ain't got none because you don't pay anything. You didn't pay anything this year. I said, well, I never pay anything because, hold on, I never pays anything because I never pay. It comes right out of my Social Security check for this. Well, this year it didn't. I said, can I catch this up or something? No, you have to wait till the next enrollment period. You know, when all the commercials come on TV for that. And you get scads of mail about it if you're 60 or so. And I said, darling, because she was calling me honey, I think. Darling, now tell me, can you give me a clue as to where I can get some of this Obama money so I can pay that Medicare and get it going again? She said, I know nothing about that Obama money. Well, I know, that was 10 years ago, I guess. No Obama money now, it's all gone. Well, anyway, that's a little bit a problem, but I've waited so long to do something about it. I only have 3 more months to wait. What would Yeshua do? He'd say, trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in me, Yeshua, but to trust and obey. I suspect I'm going to be singing that song tomorrow and happy to do it. So, my friends, that's the story of Lazarus and a couple of mistakes, errors in translation. I'm sure there are a few more that I just haven't caught. Trust and obey, brother. There's no other way to be happy in Jesus. We should put that on the liturgy so we can sing that. For in fellowship sweet, we abide at his feet. Maybe you can come up with that next line. But in the meantime, we'll call on the Heisen. There's a lot in that passage, just missed and just, well, I hate to say it, but faked. It's not what it says. But nothing so bad there, I guess, except the idea that Lazarus is the disciple he loved. That's what I always thought reading the RSV, because it said he loved him. So here we have it. It's no mystery anymore as to who the disciple Jesus loved, because it's right here in chapter 11, but it doesn't say love there. Sorry. Yeah, I'm really sorry. But I'm so glad to be able to, if there's a difference, to be able to think about it and let Paraclete into my mind and tell me, yes, by next week, there's going to be something there. And I'm going to bless him forever. Amen.
The Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu is Echad.
We will love Yahweh Elohino with all our hearts and with all our souls, with all our stuff. And these words that Yahweh commands us will be in our hearts. And we will teach them diligently to our children. And we'll talk of them when we sit in our houses, and we walk down the road, and when we recline, and when we arise, and when we bind them for a sign upon our hands. And they will be as ornaments, adornments between our eyes. And we will write them on the supports of our houses, even on our gates.
Zachar, remember, when you became the Yahad of Israel, you vowed to separate yourselves from the sessions of the deceitful ones in order to depart into the wilderness to prepare the derek of Yahweh. As it is written, in the wilderness prepare the way of Yahweh. Make level in the desert a highway for our Elohim. This alludes to the study of the Torah and Kadosh writings that Elohim commanded through Moshe, giving us that which is sufficient for us to live according to everything that has been revealed from time to time, and according to what has been revealed to the prophets by his Ruach Kadosh.
And all this we will gladly hear and joyfully do. Last
Just,
words.
just remember that these scrolls writers are writing this before there's any New Testament. It's as though they kind of know Yahshua. There's a guy, teacher of righteousness. Look here. Is it going to show? Almost going to show the name of that book. Messiah. The Messiah before Jesus. I talked about this last week or the week before, and I did buy this book. You can remember it's by Israel Knopf. Noel, sorry. Israel, Knohl. Going to digest this here. There's a lot of theories about the dating of the teacher of righteousness. There's been several books out, different ones. Some of them there are saying that the teacher of righteousness is James, the brother of Yahshua, or Yahshua. Most exciting for me that I ever read was Robert Eisenman's books. James, the brother of Jesus. I've got a couple of them. Great big thick books. If you're on you're on a higher level in your reading and understand. Yes, get James, the brother of Jesus, It absolutely changed my mind about everything. And that was about 35 years ago when I got a hold of one of those. Then I got a hold of Robert Eisenman, the author, who's a member of the Yahad. He's still here. So I need to get a hold of him. Maybe we can get him to come in, but that book will explain it and it'll change your outlook. There's another one that he wrote right after that called the New Testament Code. These are fat books and they have everything in them. So, Heisen, why don't you quit interrupting me? And so we, creatures of clay, kneaded with water, a heap of dust and a heart of stone. For what virtue are we reckoned to be worthy of this? For into an ear of dust you have put a new word, and have engraved everlasting things on hearts of stone. You have caused straying spirits to return that they may enter into covenant with you and stand before you forever. Even in the everlasting abode, illuminated with perfect light forever, with no more darkness, for unending seasons of joy and unnumbered ages of peace. Shalom, shalom.
And let it so be unto us and our generations by your word, for the Master's sake, and for the sake of all creation. Amen and shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Okay. Anybody have an appendage to put on? Not an appendix, an appendage to put onto this service? Thank you for coming. Didn't think there were going to be anybody here at first, but look, what do we end up with here? 13. I say if it's less than 12, I'm going to cry. 12 is good for online. We had our last Johnny's and Jamborees session Tuesday night with Onia Carlson. It was good. He's come a long way. He's come a long way. Yeah, that's right. Well, if you can get people to stay as long as you, man, I'll probably be doing your funeral someday. Amen. So go ahead out there and listen to Jannies and Jambries, especially part 2 and part 3, where this guy, Onia Carlson, makes an outrageous attempt at filling in the blanks of this prophecy, this story about these two guys, two brothers, and knowing that the actual manuscript has been found last year. Because this manuscript had been nothing but little bits and pieces all over the place and nothing in the middle. Well, the whole manuscript was found in 24, and they said, well, we'll find out what all this manuscript is in about 5 years when we translate it. 5 years? We can't wait 5 years. Only Carlson's called on by the spirit of Paraclete to go ahead through the spirit and just fill it all in as to what it's all about and what we can learn from it. And I'm telling you, I've never read a more thorough rebuilding of a text, and how he did it can only be of the spirit. He's not that creative. But in 5 years, when that translation comes out, we're going to put them together and see what he got there. And I'm just going to guess that the Spirit gave it to him. Go listen. In other words, yes, you know how to get hold of us. If you can give, please do give. Got a lot of causes, a lot of pots our little fingers are into. We are working hard on the mission field, and the way I feel like about it, if your ministry doesn't have some kind of mission going on, well, what's it for? Even though um, even though going teach the nations, even though that might be an interpolation, it's a good idea. We can do that. Yes, he is very good with ancient stuff. So good night, everybody. Have a great evening. Don't forget, Elohim is watching over us. His mercy goes before us.